The royal strategy behind child marriage. The medieval world was one of intrigue, politics, and a need for strategic alliances. Marriage was never about love. It was about power, wealth, and securing the future of dynasties. At the age of 6, most children are focused on playing, learning, and growing. Yet for this young queen, her future was already sealed by the demands of politics. Her marriage was not a choice, it was an order. The year was 1128, and England was in the midst of a turbulent period. The country was recovering from civil strife, and the monarchy was attempting to solidify its power. For the English king, securing a marriage alliance with a powerful noble family was paramount. And who better to serve as the link between the royal family and an influential noble house than a young girl, who would grow up to be a queen? This was the thinking behind her marriage, an alliance forged not in love, but in political strategy. The girl in question, though only a child, was betrothed to a man who was nearly 23 years older than her, a king whose reign would be marked by ambition and the desire for power. King Henry I of England was determined to secure his reign, and he saw his young bride as the key to strengthening his ties with the powerful family to which she belonged. As was the custom of the time, the marriage was arranged without the consent of the child. At the tender age of 6, she was given away in a political maneuver, a move that would see her wed to the much older King Henry I, who was already well established as a ruler. She was a mere child, and yet the fate of a kingdom was being decided for her. For the young queen, marriage at such a young age was not only a shock but also a trauma. She was given no say in her future, no voice in the matter of her marriage, and no control over her life. For her, this was the beginning of a life defined by others' desires, one that would strip her of the childhood she deserved. How could a society allow a child to be married off to a much older man, all for the sake of power and political gain? Was it simply a product of the times, or were there deeper societal issues at play? What do you think? Should children have been treated as political pawns in this way? Or was this a necessary part of royal strategy? Share your thoughts in the comments. The child queen's life in a royal court. Though her marriage was nothing more than a political alliance, it was her life in the royal court that would shape her future. Once wed, the young queen was expected to take on the responsibilities of a queen, despite her extreme youth. Her life, as a queen consort, was filled with pressures no child should ever have to endure. Her marriage was not just a ceremonial affair. She was expected to act as the queen. She was to manage the royal household, oversee ceremonies, and maintain the decorum of the court. But how could a child, barely able to understand the full weight of her responsibilities, be expected to fulfill such a significant role? The reality of her position was both overwhelming and tragic. She was a mere figurehead, her role defined by the desires and needs of those around her. King Henry I, though a ruler, had no concern for his young wife's well-being. He viewed her as a tool, something to be used to further his power. She was thrust into the political scene, surrounded by adults who saw her only as a means to an end. Her true feelings, desires, and emotions were ignored as she was forced to adapt to the cruel and unforgiving world of the royal court. In this section of the story, we explore her life in the royal court, a life filled with loneliness, isolation, and the loss of her childhood. Despite her young age, she was expected to navigate the treacherous waters of court politics, becoming a pawn in a much larger game. Her life as queen was not one of luxury or happiness. Though she lived in the grandeur of the royal court, her existence was devoid of warmth and affection. She was isolated from her family, separated from her peers, and left to fend for herself in a world dominated by men. How could a child be forced into such an adult role? Was there any way she could have had a normal childhood? Or was her fate sealed from the moment she was married off? Do you think it was possible for her to thrive as queen? Or was she destined to be a pawn in a political game? Share your thoughts in the comments. The tragic end of the forgotten queen. As time passed, the young queen's life continued to be dictated by forces beyond her control. The pressure of living as a queen, in a world that demanded much from her, took its toll. Though she was married to King Henry I, their relationship was never one of partnership or affection. She was a young woman trapped in a marriage that she did not understand, surrounded by people who cared more about politics than her happiness. The death of King Henry I in 1135 marked the end of her reign as queen consort. After his death, her life became even more precarious. She was left in a position of political instability, and the death of her husband further solidified her role as a mere figurehead, rather than a real player in the royal court. The kingdom was plunged into turmoil, and with it, the life of the young queen. She was cast aside in the wake of King Henry I's death, her role rendered obsolete by the shifting political landscape. Her childhood, once lost to a marriage of convenience, was now replaced with the bitter reality of a queen who had never truly been allowed to rule. Her death, at a young age, was a tragic end to a life that had never been truly hers. Her legacy as the forgotten queen was sealed, and history largely overlooked her as she became another tragic footnote in the story of England's monarchy. What could have been done differently for this young queen? Was there any way for her to find happiness or power within her marriage, or was she doomed from the start? What do you think? Was her life a product of a royal system that dehumanized women, or was she simply a victim of circumstance? Share your thoughts in the comments. The legacy of the Forgotten Queen. Despite her tragic life, the Forgotten Queen's legacy is not completely lost. Her story, though often overshadowed by more famous monarchs, holds vital lessons about the treatment of women in royal politics. She was a young girl who was married off for the sake of power, forced into a life that stripped her of everything she should have held dear. Her legacy serves as a reminder of the harsh realities faced by many women throughout history. The Forgotten Queen's life is also a cautionary tale about the dangers of using children as pawns in political games. Her story challenges us to rethink the way we view historical figures and to recognize that even those who are not remembered in the history books often have stories that demand to be heard. In the modern world, the tale of the Forgotten Queen remains relevant. It reminds us of the need to protect children from the influence of politics and power, and to ensure that they are not subjected to decisions that are beyond their understanding or control. Though her legacy was marred by the circumstances of her birth and marriage, the Forgotten Queen's life should not be forgotten. What does the legacy of this Forgotten Queen teach us about the treatment of women in history? How can we ensure that future generations are not subjected to the same fate? Do you think history has been kind to her memory? Or should we be doing more to remember her story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Modern reflection on the Forgotten Queen. The tragic story of the Forgotten Queen serves as a powerful reminder of the injustice and hardships faced by women throughout history. Today, her life might be seen as a reflection of the ongoing fight for gender equality and the struggle for women's autonomy in a world often controlled by power structures. While her story remains largely forgotten, it underscores how far society has come and how far we still have to go in ensuring the protection and empowerment of young girls and women everywhere. In the modern era, it's hard to imagine the fate of a child being decided by royal politics. Yet, the echoes of this dark history remain present, particularly when it comes to child marriage and the exploitation of young women for political gain. The Forgotten Queen's story should not be seen as a relic of the past, but as a warning to ensure that such practices never repeat. As we reflect on her life, we must ask ourselves, how can we break the cycle of using women and children as pawns in political games? The Forgotten Queen's fate teaches us a vital lesson. We must never forget the importance of protecting the vulnerable, especially the young, in a world that often sees them as tools for others' ambitions.